Hello, everybody. Hope everybody is doing good. Excited about tonight. Sponsorships, what they won't tell you. I am so excited that all of you decided to join. Hey, guys. So just to let you know, I think Chloe, she might be a little bit late just because she got stuck in some traffic, but I am excited too, Brandy. I see you, girl. I see you. I'm very excited about tonight. I think we're going to have an incredible time, and I definitely believe that you guys are going to come out on top. So, hey. Oh, you're welcome. I wish that more people would have done this whenever I was looking for sponsorship like 3 or 4 years ago, because I realized that a lot of people don't really want to talk about it, but there's a lot of great opportunities to receive sponsorship funds. So I'm going to let more people come in, and I'm just going to get a couple of other things done. But yes, we are going to get going. Y'all make sure y'all get y'all's questions ready too, because we're going to spend a lot of time answering questions. I want to make sure that I get all of your questions answered. So just make sure y'all have that written down. Also, I will advise you guys to grab a notebook, get your pens ready, because you definitely want to take lots of notes. I will be giving out lots of information, and Chloe will be giving out information as well. So bear with me. Y'all keep joining in. Y'all talk to each other. Have a good time. I am about to put some stuff in here, so I'm going to give it about 2 to 3 minutes before I get started, okay? I'm so excited y'all are tuning in. Thank y'all for tuning in today. We're going to have us a good time. We are going to have a wonderful time. I see you, Andrea. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Hey, April. Thank you for tuning in. Tajiri, hi. Thank you for joining. Hey, Miss Jeanette. Thank you so much for coming in. She's a motivator. I see you, girl. Thank you so much for always supporting. You're the bomb. All right. So the title of this live is basically Sponsorships, What They Won't Tell You. I am going to hopefully pin that. Oh, thank you. A Seat at the Table. I see you, sister. Y'all make sure y'all go and check out A Seat at the Table. She is having an amazing event called Table of 18, and I believe that they still have tickets, so y'all make sure that y'all go and sign up. Register for that event. I'm going to be speaking and sharing loads of wisdom there, so. All right. Up, look, hey, Lizzie B. Y'all, if you ever need your makeup done, go hit up I Am Lizzie B MUA. She is great. Hi, Melody. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, guys, I love giving shout outs. So I see that Chic Moguls, they have joined in. Y'all, if you're African American, Black, I mean, I feel like we got all different types of women, all different shapes and sizes. Go and follow Chic Moguls. They are incredible. I love what they're doing. And a part of their mission is to help small businesses turn into corporations. So I love that. Y'all go and follow them, check them out. I believe that they are going to help so many women with great resources. So let's see, have my 2 minutes gone? All right, it's 6:34, so I like to stay on time. Let's go ahead and get started. So first off, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining Chloe and I, which she's going to be in just a moment, for Sponsorships, What They Won't Tell You. Part of the reason why the both of us really wanted to do this is simply because we were having a phone conversation, and she said, hey, Jess, you know, I host my brunches. I've been watching you and what you're doing with your conference, and I see that you've been getting sponsorships, and I kept asking myself, how are you able to do this? And I said, well, you could do the same thing. And she was like, really? She said, because I just host brunches. And I said, yeah, you might just host brunches, but you host your brunch in Atlanta, you host your brunch in Dallas, you host your brunch in other places. So I think that you have something very valuable to offer, even though I may have hundreds of people at my conference and you may have like 20 to 25 people at your brunch. We both still have valuable audiences, and there are plenty of companies that want access to your peeps. And the fact that you have an audience that is in different regions of the United States, that makes it even better. And so as we got to talking and thinking about the questions that we had been asking other people, like as far as them sharing their resources, she was like, I paid $2,500 to get sponsorship information. It was very basic. And I was like, ooh, that's a lot of money to pay someone. And I realized over time that, I'm not going to pay anybody to do this. I've tried it before. It did not work for me. If you don't have a sales mindset to go out there and get the money that you want for your event, this is definitely something that's not going to work for you, because you have to be willing to do the work when it comes to getting sponsors. So just to kind of give you a brief little touch on my background. So I started Woman of Purpose. I'm the founder of Woman of Purpose. I've hosted over 4 conferences and over 50 sold out workshops. But I started Woman of Purpose back in 2012 when I was getting my MBA. And when I started Woman of Purpose, I really didn't have any money to start Woman of Purpose. I'm this broke college student, still living at home with my parents. And I just had this vision. I had this crazy vision that I'm going to host women's conferences. It started in my home. All right, so there's Chloe. Hold up. I'm going to pause for a moment. Yes, my sister Chloe. I'm waiting for her to join. I'm so happy that she could join us. I see we got the lady Jade. Hi, Chloe. Welcome.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, just wanted to let you know I'm giving everyone just a little bit of a background history on how I started Woman of Purpose and why we decided to do this evening, okay? Yep. So actually, before I even continue with my story, let me ask, do you have, let's introduce Chloe and tell us who you are.
Hey guys, so for those of you who don't follow me, I am Chloe, aka the Chloe brand. So what I do is I am a visual branding coach and designer. So I help to make sure that your business is not just about your logo. It's not just about your business cards. Not saying it's not important. However, you have to create an experience. So my whole job is, like, I've even done creative direction for events, for photo shoots and things like that. So what I do is to make sure you're creating an experience visually, to make sure everything is cohesive. So that is extremely important. Jessica's done an amazing job at that. She knew me back in my blogging days. I was actually a blogger first, and then I started helping businesses with their blogs, helping other bloggers get started and things like that. So I've been behind the scenes now the past couple of years, and that's it. So we've both done a lot of sponsorships. She's done more of the conference level. I've done more so of the personal sponsorships, small events, and things like that. And we're just going to give y'all the whole rundown and drop these gems.
Yes, yes, yes. So thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Chloe, for introducing yourself. And I'm glad you made it safely and on. So we've got some incredible women in here, some powerhouses. So these powerhouse women, I know they're definitely going to learn lots and be able to take away some good knowledge away from this Instagram Live. So just going back to how I started Woman of Purpose. Again, broke college student. I knew I had this crazy big vision, and I was like, you know what, God, I'm just going to go out and do this. So I used my student loan money, put together a flyer myself, didn't hire a graphic designer. That's one of those first little apps before Canva came out. But I put the flyer out, and already, like, within the first day, sold over 100 tickets. And I was like, oh my God, I was only planning for 50 people to be there. And now I got to figure out how to get a much larger venue, because clearly this has turned into something much bigger than what I thought it was going to be. And so if I need a bigger venue, that meant I needed more money. I also needed money to pay flights for speakers and pay for local speakers and be able to pay the speakers that attended the event and pay for food for volunteers. So there were so many different things. And I was like, I don't even know how to begin to look for sponsors. So what I decided to do was just, again, use student loan money. The second year, I did have a few sponsors, but again, still, I would say 50 to 75% of the conference was taken care of out of my own pocket. So by year 3 of doing the Woman of Purpose conference, I got to a place where I was just tired because I realized that, oh my goodness, I cannot continue to do this anymore. I cannot continue to pay anywhere from $10 to $15 to $20,000 to host a conference. I need to go out there and find sponsors. Well, this is what I ran into after trying to go out and find people or find resources to help me with sponsorships. There was one woman, she reached out to me to speak at her event, and I was like, oh, I would love to. I met some incredible women at that event, and I used that kind of as my opportunity to start asking, like, hey, I see this company has sponsored your event. I see you getting these type of sponsorships for your events, and you're doing so well. How can I get it? And I had women that would say, oh, I'd be more than happy to help you. And then when it comes down to it, we started going to the emails, and I'm like, share contacts, and I would never get a phone call again. And so I got to the point where I was just like, is this really going to happen for me? I meant to bring my prayer jar, but, guys, I'm a strong believer when it comes to my faith. And one of the things that I did was I just began to get a jar, and I was like, okay, God, these are the specific things that I need, and it's going to be me and you, and we're going to have to make this happen. So I'm putting everything in the jar. The lady that asked me to speak at her event, we went out to dinner one evening, and she said, man, I love your conference. I'm excited about the upcoming conference because, you took a year off and, you brought it back. I got to ask, how are you paying for this? And I looked at her and I said, I have no idea how I'm doing it. But the first year I used student loan money. The second year I still used money that was student loan money, but I had to do a lot of it out of pocket. And now I'm just trying to find sponsors, but it's not working out for me. I'm sending emails. I have a kit. This is what my kit looks like. And she said, you mean to tell me these past 2-3 years that you've done your conference, they were not sponsored? I said, no. And she said, oh my God, I love your events. Your events are so excellent. And I thought all these years that you actually had people backing you up. And I said, no. She said, sis, let me help you. And when she said that, of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, I've heard let me help you before, but let me help you ends up turning into not answering my phone calls. So she actually really did take the time out to help me. And she said, I want you to share your sponsorship deck with me. And I'm going to basically look at everything. And I'm also going to be a sponsor for your conference. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, wait a minute, you're going to sponsor my conference. And mind you, this is someone who every single one of her events for the past 5-6 years have been paid for. And when she was breaking it down to me, she was like, I can basically put my tickets at this price because my events, before I even put the tickets out there, my events are already paid for. So I'm thinking to myself like, oh, wow, this is crazy because I ain't never had nobody come to me and share that they wanted to give that much knowledge. So she looked at my deck and she was like, I'm just going to tell you, girl, this isn't a good deck. Not only is it not a good deck, but you have so many things in there that sponsors don't even care about. She was like, you need to take this out. You need to take that out. Also, let me get you with my graphic designer because you can't tell a full and complete story with the way this media kit is looking, or not the media kit, but the sponsorship deck is looking. And so she was like, yeah, let me send you my deck. And once I send you my deck, I want you to basically redo your deck based off of what I'm giving you. And so I did. And then she said, one of the things that I want you to understand is right now you don't have a complete story about your organization. So I was like, okay, all right. So what do you mean by that? She's like, since you don't have a complete story, yes, you have the consistency. Yes, you have the audience. You need to begin to put the pieces of this puzzle together for the potential sponsors that you're looking to get to sponsor your events. And I was like, okay. So I began putting the story together so that way it became more clear as potential sponsors were looking through my sponsorship deck. But then she also
And Jessica, can I interject real quick? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to tell you guys, when it comes to, you guys know, I probably will beat this into the ground about branding. That's what branding is. You're supposed to be telling the story. You're supposed to be making sure anybody you reach out to, your clients, your customers, make sure they understand your story because that's what really sells your brand. A lot of times, your biggest supporters, it comes from just them supporting you. Like, some people just want to see you win, so they're going to support. And it can even start like that. Like with Jessica, the lady who came to her, she wanted to see her win, and she was like, no, I want to see you win. I want your sponsorship deck to look like this. So really make sure you're putting it all together for people, because that is what really will put you in the game. Not even just an event, but like branding in general.
Yes, very, very good point, which is why, and by the way, y'all, Chloe, she is the branding queen, and she designed our flyer for this Instagram live tonight. So if y'all ever need graphic work done, please be sure to hit up Chloe. But yeah, you know, as she was sharing these things with me, she was talking about the complete story. She said, one of the things that you need to understand, Jessica, is that sometimes these big corporations, they may not want to sponsor you just yet. But she said, what you need to do is not be afraid to go and talk to small business owners. And so I was like, oh, I never thought about that. She was like, so many people, when they first start doing events, they go after the Toyotas, they go after the Fords, they go after McDonald's, they go after these huge major companies. And it's kind of like, well, wait, you're not giving me a deck that reflects the numbers of my return of investment. So she was saying, if one company like a McDonald's or a Toyota decided that they were going to give you $25,000, that's fine. But imagine if you actually went to 20 different small businesses and each one of them said yes. And there you still have the $20,000 to $25,000 in sponsorship. And so when she painted the picture to me like that, that's when my strategy changed. Instead of trying to attack all or go after all of the really big wigs, I said, you know what, let me just use my circle around me to help connect me to other people that have small businesses that are willing to sponsor things like Woman of Purpose, because our brands and our visions align. So basically, when it came to the 2017 conference, my conference was sponsored through small businesses and a few major bigwigs, but primarily through small businesses that were willing to help, or saw and believed in my brand and my vision. And then what that led into is by the time I got to my 2018 conference, I was able to put on a great production in 2017, but then that led to bigger sponsors coming. I mean, I had sponsors that were emailing me and were like, hey, we really want to be a part of your conference. And that's when I had to go back and be like, oh, I don't know if this is necessarily, if this is a brand that I want to work with. So now I began to choose who I want to sponsor my event or not. So I shared that story to really let you know that I made a lot of mistakes. And I realized as I have more and more conversations with other people who ask me about sponsorships, just like I sat down with someone the other day, and she was telling me, she was telling me that she was reaching out to Louis Vuitton. She was reaching out to all of these luxury brands to come and sponsor her event. And I was like, that's awesome. That's great. And the truth is, there are brands out there, luxury brands, that do also want to give money. But do their visions really align with what you're doing with your brand? And if not, then you probably want to go to other luxury brands that align with what you were doing. Because the truth is, there's money out there, especially for Black women. When you think about like just the way the Black dollar and the power that it has, that is one strategy that you should be using when you were going out and you were talking to these brands. So knowing my story, knowing a little bit of Chloe's story, really what we wanted to do is talk about the mistakes that people make, what mistakes to avoid, and also what you need to do before you actually start reaching out to sponsors. So I saw that there was a question that came and someone just said, what is a sponsorship deck? A sponsorship deck is basically your presentation, your story, your data, all your facts about your organizations and reasons why that brand, that company, that corporation should invest in you. And that once you send them out that sponsorship deck should basically give them all of the benefits as why they should sponsor your event, why they need to be associated with your brand, what's going to be the ROI for them, what are the benefits, why is this going to be a good look. And so it's up to you to present that in your sponsorship deck. So you guys, we're gonna answer questions. I think we need to go through everything before we start answer question, but yes, you can go ahead and type them. We'll be sure to answer them. So the first thing I want to say that you should make sure you have before you actually start reaching out to sponsors is show that you've been consistent. So what
Exactly.
I mean by showing that you've been consistent, it is you've done maybe 2 or 3 events, and with those 2 or 3 events, you've gotten the footage, you've created the highlight reel for us. So you have great video footage that you can put in your sponsorship deck. And if you are in a face-to-face meeting, you're able to give them the reel of what took place. You also have great images. So you've hired a professional photographer to come in and capture your event. So that way it's much easier for you to be able to tell the story of your brand to
And
these
y'all,
potential
like,
sponsors.
and Jessica knows, like, I am anal when it comes to make sure you have the right photographer. And if you saw my post yesterday, I said not every professional is for you. Like, if you're telling me as a brand person that your brand, you're like, I really like bright colors. So you have like white, highlighter yellow, highlighter pink. You don't need a photographer that has dark style, shadowy style images. Like, before you do anything that we tell you guys tonight, you need to make sure you do the research of everything. Like, if you have teenagers as your target audience, they might like brighter colors because they have to stay engaged. So you need to figure out how to do that. You need to figure out if you're having a photo shoot, where it needs to be, to where the lighting is right, who needs to be shooting it. Everything has to be correct, because like Jessica said, you don't just go after large businesses automatically because you need free money. It's way deeper than that. Like, they have to prove that it's worth it. So, yes, it might be helping you out, but if, say, for example, if you do Toyota, I think that's the example we're using today. If you do Toyota, you need to at least have proof that some people are going to be looking at Toyotas now more. They're going to be at least going to Toyota dealerships, seeing where they found out about Toyota from. You can't just say, okay, well, Toyota gave me $50,000, I'm good. Because Toyota's going to stay in touch with you and be like, okay, so now where did our money go? Like, what do you have to do? Like, if they're giving you a large amount of money, you can't have a half-ass, excuse my language, but for real, you can't have a half-ass event and then try to pocket the money yourself. Like, they want to make sure their money was going toward putting your event on, like,
Well,
in an
and
effective way.
also too, like, for your video footage and hiring a photographer for your events, you have to understand there are people who are going to sending their decks out to these big, large corporations. And if you're going to deal with the Toyota or you're going to deal with the Mercedes-Benz, your presentation has to be on point, because those type of brands, when you're talking, they're giving you 5 figures, 6 figures, and $150,000 for deals. They want to ensure that their $150,000 that they just invested into your brand, it looks well. It looks well from every branding material that goes out. So I think even before you start getting sponsors for your events, when you start small, it's always so important to be able to bring in somebody that can capture your story and capture it well. Because any brand that you ask money, any company that you go to trying to get money from them for your brand and for your events, they want to see a good presentation. So the look matters. The second thing that I would say you need to make sure you do before you actually go out and start seeking for sponsors or reaching out to sponsors is understand your audience. This is probably one of the most important things, and something that I didn't do well when I first started with Woman of Purpose and had my first conference. What I mean by understanding your audience is make sure that you understand all the different demographics. You understand the percentages. We have 20% Caucasian, 70% African American. Understanding all of those things. If you do not have that data, trust me, you are not going to get sponsored by anybody, because they want to know that you understand who you're reaching out to, and the reason why they're reaching out to you or will want to sponsor your brand is because that may be a part of their marketing initiatives or objectives for the year of 2019, to reach out to an African audience or to reach out to a Black audience. So if they understand your numbers, that will ensure they will be like, oh, okay, this is part of our objectives. These are part of our marketing objectives to reach this target audience, and you have the audience that we need. So that's why it's so important for you to understand your audience. And this even goes as far as understanding your audience, that certain speakers that you may bring to your event, if those speakers, there are some brands that have told me, I'm sorry, I cannot sponsor your conference because you've had this speaker before and this speaker doesn't align with where we are going. It happens all the time. And so it's so important for you to understand, even when you, not only when you're trying to figure out your target or potential sponsors, but also when you are looking at speakers that you were booking, because some of the speakers that you've had at your past events are possibly keeping you from getting certain sponsorships. So keep that in mind. Like in the beginning, when I started Woman of Purpose, I had certain speakers, and when I think about it, when you think about your brand and the story that you're trying to tell, do not just think about today. You have to think about, what is my brand, the vision of my brand today, the brand today, and the brand 2 years from now, the brand 5 years from now, and the voice that you want to have, because the voice has to be consistent. And when I going back to consistency, not only do they want to see consistency in the number of events that you've had, but they also want to see consistency in what you are communicating to your audience. So
Exactly.
having a very clear understanding of your audience, the demographics, where they coming from. If you got 20,000 people on your email list or 5 people on your email list, where are those 5 people coming from? Are they in Atlanta? Are they in Dallas? That is like vital information that you need to have. Chloe, did you want to add anything to
Yeah,
audience?
if we're talking about the demographics, make sure you're going by the demographics of who you're trying to reach, not the demographics of just what your following is today. Like I look at my demographics constantly. Like if you use Instagram, your insights. Like my number 5 spot is constantly changing between Charlotte, Chicago, Houston, and LA. So that means that's kind of around the same thing. So it's like if I decide in the future that I want to host an event in LA, that means I need to go ahead and start figuring out what they like, what would get me out there, how do I need to appeal to them so that I can go ahead and put that in place. Like I tell my branding clients, and if any of you guys are my clients, you guys already know, like you have to understand the following that you need, not just the following that you have. Like if you're on
Yes.
Instagram, if you're on Instagram and you get on your explore page and all you see is strippers, that means you're following the wrong people, because your explore page is based on who you follow, what it seems like you're interested in based on hashtags that you like. It goes along with so many things. But if you know you want to do 40-year-old women who are moms, who are wives, you need to look for mom bloggers. You need to look for relationship bloggers. You need to look for the type of people that go along with what you're trying to put on an event for, before you're just doing it. Like it doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers if it's 1 million strippers and that's not who you're trying to market to.
And again, remember, it's Toyota trying to market to 1 million strippers, because when we talk
Exactly.
about like understanding your audience, the next thing that is very important that you need to understand before you reach out to a sponsor is understanding your data. So the data is, whenever I had my last event, our hashtag was WOP Conference 18. All right, how many times was that hashtag used? That's a part of your data, because if you had a bunch of people tagging and hashtagging and reposting, all of that information is important. You want to put that in there, because a lot of these companies, they're using influencers. They want to understand what are people are saying about you on the internet. Are you a hit or are you not a hit? And all that data is important. Another thing when I talk about data is understanding, when I talk about the power of the black dollar. I believe there's a lot of African Americans on here, but if there are a lot of Caucasians, let's not even talk about the black dollar. Let's just talk about women's empowerment. And let's just talk about, if you went to go and look at the hashtag Black Girl Magic, there's somebody here, I think y'all, I love this organization, Boss Women Media. They're great. I tell people all the time, if you want to follow a organization that is really doing well and marketing very well, Boss Women Media, they're doing great. But I think it's awesome to just kind of see like how she has taken Black Girl Magic and turned that into something so powerful. But when you go look at the hashtag Black Girl Magic, that is a selling point and a pitching point to those potential sponsors that you're going to.
Don't just hashtag stuff because it has a lot of posts associated with it. Like I know a lot of people, they'll hashtag like, oh, it has 1 million posts, so that means that I can use it. Like, no, actually the best way to hashtag is anything that has between 20,000 and 500,000 posts. Because if you have more than or less than, Instagram will shadow ban you, meaning you'll be marked as spam. Pretty much. Sometimes it's just that post. I've had a couple clients tell me they were copy and pasting the same hashtag. It shadow banned, meaning hid
their whole account. Like you can still search for them, but you wouldn't be discovered. So you have to really take your time when you're going into these things if you're really trying to put on an event. So like I said, if money's hard, I get it. Every entrepreneur has been through it, unless, you know, they were born with a silver spoon, all that good stuff. But most of the time, an entrepreneur has been through it. You cannot just say, oh, I just need 50,000 to put on this event. I'm gonna have enough for this, put some in my pocket. You have to prove that your events are worth that. And you have to put in work.
And going back to the hashtag and why I was saying, you know, Black Girl Magic, here's the thing. If you are targeting people who are interested in that hashtag, when you go into a meeting, you can easily say, hey, this is the name of our tour. This is how many consumer dollars are going into the Black women and Black women's empowerment. Use that. Go and do your research. Go and look at reports. You can hire people on Fiverr using Fiverr.com to go and go and get the analytics and the data for you, because you also, part of understanding your audience is to understand, like, okay, these people in this area, they love wearing this much. Okay, the percentages, how much money are they spending? The Black dollar, honestly, when you think about, like, especially for Black women, we are a billion-dollar industry. So we spend money. And if you go and present that and you have the right numbers, what company is going to say, no, we don't want to target an audience of women that spends billions of dollars each year in the beauty and hair care industry? Yes, exactly. Those companies, they want it. So that's why it's so important whenever you are pitching, you have to understand your numbers. It almost is kind of like a numbers game, okay? I do also want to put in here, like, when people say it's not about what you know, but who you know. Yes, it is about who you know, but you also need to understand that what you know about your audience, that matters. Because if you get into those meetings and you don't understand how to, like, the questions that they're asking you, how many people are doing this, what's the percentages of people that you have here, and all that type of stuff, those are numbers that they are talking about every day. They have huge budgets for people like you and I. So they want to know that if I am giving you hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even if it's $1,000, I want to make sure that you understand everything that we're asking you about your vision, your brand, your event. So the next thing that I want to add is before you start reaching out to sponsors, things that you need to make sure you have in place in order, got your ducks in a row before you start reaching out.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on, Jessica. We had a couple questions about hashtags, and that way on that. For hashtags, yes, always make sure, come up with your own hashtags, switch up some for each of your posts. But after you do that so much, again, you'll get shadow banned. So you need to come up with individual things or hashtag words within the post. Like, don't always just do hashtag because you want likes. Because likes, honestly, they're not going to pay the bills. Like, likes are cool, shows engagement, it helps with Instagram, we all know that, but you need to make sure your hashtags are what the type of people that you want coming to your event are going to follow. So I think it was, we had the Dorsey firm is the one that asked the question. So your hashtags need to always say hashtag the Dorsey firm, hashtag trademarks, things like that, whatever you want. You know, sometimes you will click on hashtags accidentally, and you want to be, even if it's an accidental type of hashtag. So always switch them out. I know you guys have seen some of the other influencers, they'll post and they'll say, like, oh, you know, hashtag Raven Elise outfit of the day. So it'll say Raven D. You can go see just all her outfits, because hashtags also build content. You can even put that in your sponsorship deck when in media, what your hashtags are. Because these companies, they're going to research you. They're going to look into you. Just because your sponsorship deck is pretty doesn't mean they're about to give you this money.
Oh, so yes, and oh yeah, and I'm so happy you touched on that. We are also, that's one of the things about mistakes, because not only are we going to tell you what you need to have in line before you start reaching out to sponsors, but also the mistakes that we've made, how, like, what you need, the mistakes you need not to make. But I like the fact that we're answering some questions. Let's answer some questions before we move on to the last point before you start reaching out to sponsors. But somebody asked, how do you market if you don't have a lot of data or new on the scene? Andrea, that comes from Conquer. Really, if you don't have a lot of data on the scene,
that's perfectly okay. Kind of like going back to the example of the hashtag. You could always, somebody just mentioned in the group, Sofa Rush. She said that she created her hashtag, created her own hashtag just to track data, because Instagram will easily give you the data that you're needing when it comes to hashtags. So maybe yours is you create a hashtag, maybe making sure that the little data that you do have, be able to provide the little data that you have, but also maybe pull, like, as far as your audience and the demographic that you already have and that you're trying to reach, also use that as a pitching point. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, and it's okay to put out because you're just starting out. We're not by any means saying don't do an event yet or anything like that. Just make sure you're doing the work to put out there, because a lot comes with it. And we're going to touch on this close to the end of our chat. But Jessica and I, we're actually going to be doing a full-on course for everything. Jessica will be helping you guys how to put together the information for your deck, and I will be designing the deck so that way you know that you have one that you can confidently pitch to, whether it's a small brand or a large brand. And like she said, don't take these small brands for granted. Like, please do not, because there are some small businesses. Like, small business doesn't mean it's someone who just started a boutique yesterday. Like, a small business can be any business that might be making under $1 million a year, and they might be making 999,000, but they might be, willing to sponsor your event. So don't just automatically go toward the larger one. It does take time sometimes. Like, some people, you will get lucky, and sometimes, you got to put in some work, like most of us have to do. So we'll give you guys some more information about our full-on course at the end, but we want to make sure we answer some basic questions tonight.
Yep. And somebody just asked, this came from Brandy, how does a deck differ from came from Brandy. How does a deck differ from a media kit? So your sponsorship deck is basically, that's what's going out to your sponsors. A media kit is usually for like an artist. If you're a brand influencer, your media kit just basically tells, what your services are, what you do, what brands you may have worked with in the past.
What's your social media following, stuff like that. Because I've seen sponsorship decks that didn't even have social media followings in there, but they told what the influence power of their featured, speakers and everything were. They didn't say anything though about how many followers they had on their page, because it's about if you can get people in the seats. Like, just because someone has 1 million followers, like we said, it doesn't mean they have 1 million orders every day if they're selling something. Like, do not ever get that twisted, just to add on to that aspect. But like Jessica said, like a media kit, if you're a blogger, like an individual brand, a media kit will suffice. It'll have like all of your social media following numbers on there. It'll have like a little bit about you, your story, other brands that you've worked with. And honestly, in a sponsorship deck, sometimes they don't want to know all the other brands you work with. Like, not saying you can't put it in there, but they need to see, like, it might be like some of their competition or something. So, you have to be a little bit more careful, and it's more about what you can prove you can give back to them. For a media kit, is more so like, hey, this is what I've done. This is about me. It's just like a really pretty resume in short, whereas a sponsorship deck is like, this is this PowerPoint and why you need to give me this money. Like, that, it's a little bit more extensive, you guys.
Yep. All right. That was an awesome response. We got another question from Touch of Jewel, and she said, what do sponsors typically expect back from you after sponsoring? That is a great question. So for every sponsor, it's a little bit different. So in my experience with sponsors that I've had in the past is, depending on which sponsorship level they went with, they're either wanting they want a master list of all of your contacts, all of the contacts of attendees, so they can have access to email them. For some, it might be, hey, we need that recap video. I was able to get sponsorship from Methodist Health.
last year for the Woman of Purpose conference. And one of the things that we had in our sponsorship agreement was that I needed to come put out 2 YouTube videos on our YouTube page. One of the things that was attractive to them was that we had 16,000 followers. I know there are some of you in here, you have thousands, like even hundreds of thousands of YouTube subscribers. And again, all of that, like, these brands want access to who your audience is. And so for me, I basically pitched it as, well, hey, if this is what I'm going to give you, this is a part of an audience or a market that you want to tap into. So this is how much it's going to cost if you want these 2 YouTube videos to go out. And so we were able to negotiate. That was something that they expected. Another sponsor that we had, they wanted to make sure that we sent out an email blast to all of our attendees for what they offered to our attendees to make sure that they were going to get their return of investment. They also, I had another sponsor that said, hey, we'd like to speak on the stage for 2 minutes, during the conference, or for 5 minutes during the conference. So it really depends on what deliverables that you guys agree upon during that contract signing. It's very different for each one. Let me go and see if there are any more questions before we go to. Okay, I think we've talked about hashtags. Okay, so I'm going to move to the last thing on the list for sponsors. When it comes to sponsors, are y'all able to hear me?
We can hear you. Well, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I thought I was hearing some stuff in the background. I was like, what is that? Okay, so the last thing that I had on the list for what you should do before reaching out to sponsors, this one is a big one, is creating.
Oh, wait, Jessica, we do have one more question before you go into it. Someone said, is it good to have competing sponsors?
No, actually, that is in it. That's a wonderful question. It is not good to have competing sponsors. So let me give you an example of that. One year, I actually set my packages up to where if they wanted to place their items in the gift bag, it was something that was, I'm only going to have one natural hair care company inside of the gift bag. And that was something that had to be paid for, because you will get a lot of companies that want to give their products. And when you're first starting out, to accept free products, that's good. But once you get to a level where you're starting to get sponsorships from major companies, and you're getting them to actually write checks, then you begin to place a high dollar value on your audience, which is, no, I'm not going to take free products. This is how much it's going to cost if you want to be in the bag. So I made it very exclusive. And one of the other hair companies reached out to me and said, oh, I really wish I could have put my stuff in your bags. And I said, well, I can't do that because this person already paid for it. But what you can do, because I don't have an exclusive contract or agreement with them, you can have a vendor table. So my way of, you wouldn't want to have 2 competing brands inside of like your VIP bags or your giveaway bags. You usually want to give that to one person. So another thing is, like, I wouldn't have Toyota and Lexus on the same event. It doesn't go well. With hair companies, it's a little bit different. But when it comes to, like, you're getting into the cars, you're getting into financial institutions, that's just a no-no, something that you don't want to do. So,
and make sure that all your sponsors go along with your brand too. Like if you go to a Gucci event, that would be a luxury brand. So if you're doing anything, if you're going to do cars along with the Gucci event, you need Bentley, you need, you can have Mercedes. It's kind of like the lower end luxury. Like everything needs to be cohesive. And that's why I tell you guys all the time, branding is not just, oh, it's pretty, oh, my colors match. Like it's literally an experience. So if you're creating a luxury experience, like for Fashion Week, for the longest, it was Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week. And that's because Mercedes-Benz is a luxury car. They have a higher luxury line. They have, Mercedes-Benz itself. Like you can't mix the two. Also, not even just because of competition, but because it doesn't always go well. Like, especially with what you're doing. Like Jessica's event, in my opinion, is very, high end as far as the experience of it. So if she said, oh yeah, my partner is going to be Mercedes, completely understand and agree with her having that as a sponsor. And I see we have another question. Just someone said, should the media kit be a one pager or multi? If multi, how many pages should it be? Honestly, there's not really an answer to that as far as how many pages it should be, because that would depend on your level of experience and how much content you have. Now, it's just kind of like a resume, like a one-page resume. Like if you have a lot of good stuff, it's not going to deter you from getting that job, because a lot of times they might only be looking at that first page. But if you're going to do multiple pages, make sure you have valuable content, not just filler words, not just, a couple numbers that's like, oh, I got 100 followers last month. Okay, and how many do you have now? How many are actually buying something from you? How many are on your email list and things like that? So it's not like, as far as it being how many pages, that can depend on you. If you're just starting out, like literally haven't been in the game that long, then your media kit probably won't be that long, but it is possible to have a one-page media kit if you want to go ahead and get out there. So I'm gonna let Jessica move to the last topic though, because we got to save some of the good stuff for everyone who wants the classes, because we're gonna be dropping like all the real gems.
All right. So the last thing that I was going to add to what you need to do before you start reaching out to sponsors, and Chloe, you actually kind of touched on this, was understanding the sponsors that you are reaching out to. Do they even align with your brand, who you are, where you're going? And you would understand if they align with your brand if you take time out to do research on those brands. So when I talk about alignment, this is kind of what I mean. Let's say you are a women's empowerment group, and your ticket sales for your event are about, let's say, $100 for a 2-day conference. I'm talking about myself. And I decide that, I'm going to go to Gucci. And I'm going to their huge brand. I think that Gucci would be a perfect sponsor for my event. No, Gucci would not be a perfect sponsor.
Just because you like Gucci, please do not reach out to Gucci because you like them and their stripes. Like,
yeah,
please don't.
It's really understanding, like, when you go and you ask these questions to these sponsors, I tell everyone, I'm like, okay, you can have a list of 100 sponsors that you desire to sponsor your event. When you create that list, before you start reaching out to sponsors, you need to create a list of every single sponsor that you may want to have. So if you want McDonald's, okay, write down McDonald's. If you want Target, write down Target. But then after you write this list down, you need to go and read the vision, the mission, and everything about that company, and also look to see if they are sponsoring events that are similar to yours. Exactly. If you don't see that Target is sponsoring events that are, women's empowerment or church religious conferences, then 9 times out of 10, you do not need to send your sponsorship deck to an organization like Target, because they're not interested in sponsoring something like what you are doing. So it makes no sense. So you have to go create a list of all your potential sponsors, go in and start crossing them out. If they don't align with your vision and where you were going, it's a waste of time. And then on top of that, learn everything, learn their history, learn their accomplishments, learn what their objectives may be for this year. And then go on LinkedIn. Once you have found those organizations or the companies that you really believe you should be reaching out to, get a LinkedIn premium account. I'm going to tell y'all now, people be sleeping on LinkedIn. Do not just limit the people that you reach out to, or your network or your sphere, to Instagram or just Facebook or Twitter. LinkedIn is where a lot of the people who are cutting the checks, that's where they are. That's where they're the business people. We're all business people, but they're the ones that are sitting behind a desk, working these corporate gigs and looking for other professional women to come to them and say, hey, I got this incredible event. Who do I need to speak with within your company? When you have a LinkedIn premium account, and this is why in the beginning of the Instagram live, I said something. I was like, you have to be a salesperson.
I am so grateful that my job, my corporate gig before I left, before I became a full-time mommy and influencer and all that stuff, I was in sales. I did IT sales for a little bit, and then I used to do sales for a nonprofit called Right Now Media. And one of the greatest things it taught me was how to go out and actually pick up the phone and cold call people, which is some of what you will have to do if you're looking for sponsors. And I remember I would be sending emails all day. I would be calling numbers and getting hung up on. I heard no a lot, but I did research, and I was eventually began winning when, as a salesperson, because I was doing the work and constantly picking up the phone to call people. Don't limit yourself to just sending Instagram DMs. Don't limit yourself to just sending emails. If you can't get a hold of somebody on an email, go and find the events that they are at. So another example that I'll give you is I remember Essence was putting on an event, and they were also working with Northwestern Mutual, and there was a huge speaker there. Everybody was there to see that speaker, and I told myself, I am not there to see that speaker. I am there because I need to get in the face of Northwestern Mutual. So during the event, they had their loan officers come and speak to all of the women, and my question was, who was the person that is responsible for putting this event on with Northwestern Mutual and Essence? They pointed me in the right direction. I got his business card, sent him an email, and I said, hey, I'd like to have a face-to-face meeting. And those are the type of things that you're going to have to do before I go, because I kind of jumped ahead of the gun here. But yes, that was the last thing. The last point that I wanted to make was be sure to research all of the brands or the organizations that you want to work with. And then once you've done your research, then you can now start reaching out to them. So were there any more questions that we need to answer, Chloe, before I get into the top mistakes that people make when sending out pitch decks and how to avoid making those mistakes?
Yes, and I did see a couple questions, but before we get too deep into the last few, I also want to say, there is a such thing still as individual sponsorship. Like, I know a lot of people want to know how to do partnerships because, some bloggers, they're paid posts, and that's all cool. But again, all of this is work. Like you have to earn your money at a job. It's the same thing. If you're not working to do everything that these brands want from you, then you're not going to get paid. So don't think like, oh, she's just getting paid to post on Instagram every day. Like, no, like these brands, whether it's an event, whether it's a personal partnership, they have their own demands. So, sometimes I'll have a brand say, okay, well, you have to post within 7 days. And then if I don't post it on their schedule, because they might be new inventory, if I wait too long, the inventory is going to be sold out. So to them, there's no point in posting it. They're like, okay, what's the point of this? So, you really have to be in tune. It's a little bit different when you're reaching out to individual partnerships and sponsorships. There are specific letters you have to write. You do have to show them certain pictures. It is a little harder if you've never done it before, because they do want to look at what you have to offer, what type of content. Because think about it, if you look in a magazine, right? Sometimes you'll see a picture, it might just look like a woman sitting on the couch, but there's a specific way to create content. Like if they're in comfort and, easygoing and things like that, then that's how your content has to look. It's not about, oh, let me just hold up this bottle and I'm good. Like, no, you have to really find a way to engage your audience in this content. You have to find a way to still go along with their brand, because that's what they're really looking out for. If it's not cohesive with their brand, then just like you shouldn't work with them, they're not going to want to work with you. If you, I know we keep using this as an example. I know it's far-fetched, but if you're a stripper, they might not want you on their mom blog. They might not, want you posting certain things, because you have to look out for that. Like, they know that it's deeper than color. Like Nike, if you look at Nike ads right now, they're into an era where, like, Serena Williams, I don't know if you guys seen the recent video that she did with Nike, but the campaign is about talking about women. So right now they're doing a lot of women's empowerment events. They're doing a lot of women's empowerment campaigns. That's what they're looking to expand. They could have looked at their numbers. The women audience is not high enough. Like,
our African American audience is not high enough. Like, you don't know what they're looking at. So you have to be able to make sure you're true to your brand, you're true to what you're going to give them, that you're true to reaching out to. Like, just because you see someone sponsor Jessica doesn't mean they need to be one of your sponsors. Like, that doesn't mean it's someone.
I think we got another really good question. This comes from April, and she said, how long does the cultivation of the sponsorship relationship typically take? Fantastic question. That even should be an understanding that cultivation of the sponsorship relationship typically take, understanding that before you even reach out, because what will happen is, let's say it's 2019, you're trying to get sponsorships for your event in 2019. Here's the thing, these companies have already closed out their budget in like July of 2018 for the year of 2019. So you have to go and understand, even if that's calling and picking up the phone and asking them, hey, you know, when does your fiscal year end and when does the fiscal year begin? Asking those type of questions so you can know when you need to be going in and asking for money. So if you have a large event this year and you're looking for sponsorship, yes, you could possibly still get it. Okay, they might be able to pull some strings here and there and change things up a little bit in the budget, but you will have more success if you were planning on having a December 2019 event. You need to be reaching out in December of 2017 to, you know, get, you know, figure out like how you can get in, or sending out your sponsorship or pitch deck at that time. The sooner, the better. The sooner, the better. Because when it comes to sponsorship, there was one deal, it took me almost 7 months of phone calls, emails, in-person meetings. You never know. It could take, I know someone who was working on a major deal, and it took her a year and a half to get sponsorship for her event. And that's just talking about something like $30,000. So when you're talking now about you want $150,000 or $200,000, and I've seen some decks where they're asking for $500,000. When you're asking for that amount of money, that is definitely going to be something more of like it could be an 8 to a year long or 8 to 12 month process. So the more you're asking for, the sooner that you need to begin reaching out to those sponsors. Great question, April. So I see. Oh yes, a seat at the table is giving some really good. This is what she does for a living. We actually need to get you on a live, Sabina, because she is actually the person that decides where the money is going to go as far as like her budget or who sponsorship money should go to when it comes to events or brand activations, brand campaigns. And she just said it. She said, my budget was set for 2019 in October. So think about that. Think about that. Chloe? She's asking him, I think I can hear noise. I don't hear your voice. I can't hear your voice.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I was like, what happened? But you guys, like, Jessica is like part of the reason that I'm where I'm at. Okay, like when I say we started at ground zero together, so she's giving you advice. Please listen. Like, listen. Like, she's the one that made me get my LinkedIn together. Okay. She knows she's talking about. We've seen brand sponsorship decks together that were 20 pages long. So, but this is also a person who was asking for $1 million sponsorship. Like, it gets extremely serious. Like, this is not just, oh, I just need money. It's not like, oh, you're asking patience type. It is a tax write-off, but for them. But you have to really put in this work. Like, the more you're asking for, you're probably going to need more content. Like, it was 20 pages. It talked about each. She had each event planned out for the whole year already. So that way they can even go through and say, okay, we agree with this. Like, you have to really put in a lot of different detail based on what you're asking for. Talk about what's your influence. We have to talk about what's the buying power of each of your speakers. Like, there's a lot of different things that go into this. It's not like, okay, let me put my PowerPoint together, let me send it off because my LinkedIn is together, and now I'm gonna get this money. And it's not like, okay, like, times is hard, let me send this sponsorship package today, deposit tomorrow. Like, you really have to put in the work for that. So if anybody's planning an event for this year and wants sponsorship, make sure it's closer to the end, like Jessica said.
Yep. And so I'm going to go ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get through this because I want to make sure that you guys get this information as far as the mistakes people make when sending out their pitch decks. And let me not even just talk about people. I'm just talk about myself. When I first started sending out my deck, the number one mistake that I was making was I was sending a general deck to every single sponsor. So here's the issue with sending a general deck to every single sponsor. You are sending out a general deck that doesn't scream, wow, oh my God, I need to work with this woman. And what do I mean by that? The general deck that I had, when they looked at the presentation, it was branded completely Woman of Purpose. But I am asking Toyota to give me $150,000. So if I'm asking Toyota to give me $150, when they open up that email, they should see, hey, get ready for this event powered by Toyota and Woman of Purpose. And when they see that, they see Woman of Purpose logo, they see Toyota logo, they see a very customized package to what the event is going to feel and look like. And it's so important that you do that. Yes, it may take time, but think about how you feel whenever you receive a custom gift that was made just for you. I mean, when I got my wedding ring from my husband, I was like, this was custom to me, and I was so shocked. But that is the reaction that you want your sponsors to get, is this person really thought about us. They thought about our brand. They created activations that was based on the audience that we are trying to engage right now. And that's why it's so important to create a custom package. I wasn't doing that before. So here's the other thing, the other mistake that I was making, giving away tickets to events. This right here should automatically be a given. All right, so Chloe, really quick, I'm seeing 1 minute and 44 seconds remaining. Does this mean that I need to, we got to start it over, or what does that mean?
I think it does, because it gives you kind of like a count here. So we're going to try to wrap it up. And then if not, we'll hop back on. So y'all
don't go nowhere. We'll hop back on. All right. So I'm going to, I'm going to keep going. When it cuts off, I'll try to remember where I was. But yeah, so tickets.
When it cuts off, I'll start it on mine. That way they'll go to both of our profiles. Because if you do it, it'll erase the other one on your recording.
Oh, perfect.
We coming back in, y'all. Just bear with us. I'm waiting on Jessica.
And we're back.
You here? Sorry, guys. We're back.
We're back.
Thank you.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
All right, cool. All right, so I'm going to pick back up where I left off. And basically what I was saying was tickets to an event should already be a given. One of the things that you want to make sure that you don't do is just go in there and say, all right, well, I'm giving you 20 tickets to the conference and then 3 tickets IP dinner. They're probably like, we want more than that. What's your activation going to be? Like, how am I going to be able to actually, see that I'm getting a return of investment, or also see that I'm able to engage with your audience? These sponsors, they want to be able to engage. So some examples of what you can do as far as an activation would be put together a beauty lounge. And whenever you walk into that beauty lounge, it's going to be sponsored by Obia Naturals, or, Curls, or Cantu, or any beauty company. You could have a makeup company in there. And
it's going to be powered by those beauty companies. But creating an experience, and it's a collaborative experience where you've got the brand and you also have the sponsor, and giving the attendees a unique experience. So when you want to think beyond just tickets, because when you if a company, and I think Sabina, a seat at the table, again, this is what she does for a living, is she's receiving sponsorship decks. She does, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, but she does this for Whataburger. And she was like, you will not believe the number of decks that I get. Nonprofits, meaning we have a budget for nonprofits, and they send us decks where the only benefit for us is us giving, these tickets to the event. Sponsors definitely want more than just your tickets to your event. So you definitely want to make sure that you create a true, unique brand activation or experience. And Chloe, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yes, and you guys, if you don't have an activation or something really big that the brands are going to enjoy, don't ask for an obscene amount of money. Like, I get it that you want to plan ahead. They'll be like, okay, well, what if one person give $100,000? We won't have to ask nobody else. It might be better that you start off asking for a lot of $1,000 and $5,000 sponsorships before you start asking for more, because the more you ask for, the more they want from you. So if you know that that's what you're providing right now, or if you don't have, your own personal budget for other things, don't do that yet. Like, there's levels to it. So like Jessica said, you can't just say, oh, we're going to give free tickets just because some people paid for, certain things. So just an FYI.
Yes. So moving to my next mistake that I was making. The big mistake that I was making was I'm going to these big corporations, and I'm asking them for $500 or $1,000. You are going to a $1 billion company, or a company that grosses millions and millions of dollars a year, and you're asking them for $500. I actually had someone who does this for a living, because I have different friends that work for big organizations, and that's what they do, is look at sponsorship kits. Some of them are called directors of development, branding manager. They have different names, and I actually do have a guide. I just posted it. There is a guide that after this Instagram live, you guys can go and get it. You can pre-order it, but it's $49 tonight only. But it is basically a sponsorship guide that it shows you the media kits that I've used in the past, the bad ones, the good ones, the great ones, as well as some other organizations that have been willing to share their winning sponsorship decks. But I also give the terminology. I give you what the process looks like. I'm also, again, going through mistakes, but I know people that sell this for like $2,500, and it's real general and basic. And I promise you, what I'm sharing with you is definitely not general and basic, especially if you know that the information that you received tonight is good. Just go pay the $49 for it. It's normally $99. But anyway, I'll pin it. I will definitely pin it, Chloe. But yes, asking for too little. Do not be afraid to ask for what you are worth. My conference, the first year, I spent about $8,500. $8,500. That was on speakers, venue, food, drinks, all these things. The second year, like my first year, I did a one-day conference. By year 2, I was doing a 2-day conference. I spent about $15,000 on that conference. By the third year I did my conference, I was at about anywhere between $26,000, $30,000. Okay. So when you're talking about and that's where you're at in your budget, yes, you have to have sponsors, and you should not be afraid to ask for $10,000, $25,000, $100,000 if that's what you need for your conference budget. So there are some companies, I would have 2 different decks. At the beginning, when we first started the Instagram live, I said something. I was like, the advice that someone gave me was, if you're just starting out, don't be afraid to reach out to small businesses. Those, again, you could easily get $25,000 if you ask 25 people or 100 people. Now, those 100 people you ask, 20 people say yes, you've got your $20,000 right there. Now, if you have you've done events and you can back it up with your numbers, you totally understand, your demographics, you understand your audience, and you know how to pitch the audience, then at that point, you can now start saying, I'm bringing in speakers like Yvonne Orji. I'm bringing in, Angela Rise. I'm bringing in these really big speakers that sometimes cost $30,000 to $50,000 or more or less.
But at that point, you can actually show your sponsor that, yes, this is how much our budget is. So this is why we're asking for $100,000. So ask for those big numbers. Have 2 different decks that you can send out to, your smaller businesses or to your larger businesses. That's where I was going with that. We're going back to the story about the smaller businesses. But asking for too little can sometimes tell a larger organization that this is not something that we want to be affiliated with. If you're sending them a deck that has a $500 on there, nothing wrong with that. You just need to understand your audience and send that to someone that send that to a business that may be smaller, and $500 is definitely a bit much for them. So
exactly.
So the 4th mistake that I was always making was not understanding the yearly objectives and the mission of a company or organization that I was reaching out to, or understanding if we align or not. So let me just kind of tell you a little story. Again, I'm going back. This was an event that I went to, and I love telling stories, but Myleik Teal, I'm pretty sure some of you in here know who Myleik Teal is. If you don't, you need to go follow her. I follow her for lots of inspiration, but I also follow her because she is somebody that operates in excellence in everything that she does. And you always want to follow people who operate in excellence. Like, it's so important for you to see excellence so that way you can replicate that when it comes to your business and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I spoke here in Dallas, and a lot of people were wanting to go. And I was like, you know what? I love her, but my goal for going to this event is not to meet her. I need to connect with Essence. I need to connect with Northwestern Mutual. And so it really paid no attention to anything that, and I mean, she gave some good gems and some good nuggets. But going back to something that I said earlier today, which was don't just give away tickets, ensure that you create a true activation. Well, Northwestern Mutual, that they did for this event was it was agreed upon that they would actually be able to get their loaners and all of their financial advisors a chance to engage and interact with the audience. They had like lines of women just taking the time to speak with these financial advisors. So if you know anything about Northwestern Mutual, they help people learn how to invest and how to manage their money and help them with retirement, help towards planning towards that. So great, like financial planning. And so I did my research before going to this event to understand, like, okay, how can I get this brand to sponsor the Woman of Purpose conference? So when I saw those financial advisors and loan officers getting up, the first thing I said was, hey, I already have a financial advisor. But what I'd like to know is who's responsible for putting on this event and ensuring that Northwestern Mutual got the opportunity to do this. And okay, somebody said phone is breaking up bad. Is that my phone or is that Chloe's phone? Because I want to make sure you guys can all hear me.
I don't know. I can hear you fine.
Okay, well, I'm just going to keep going. And if y'all can't hear me, y'all let me know. So, I got to meet the national person. I hope everything is okay, but I got to meet the national, and I also got to meet the person that was over sponsorships for Dallas. And okay, thank you for letting me know you can hear me, Sabina. So yeah, I got to connect with both of them, and what it turned into was an in-person meeting, them basically saying that, yes, we'd like to work with you. And it just led into a series of different things. But I went in there with the mindset of not to, but simply to begin and building the relationship and seed planting, letting them know about my brand, who I am, but I needed to ensure that I got in front of the right person. And so one of the things, the mistake that I was making before was I simply was not getting in the face of the right people. I was going to events, worried about the wrong things when I should have been worried about who are the sponsors. So whenever you were going back to creating your list, whenever you are creating your list of sponsors, also understand the events where they're going to be at, so that way you can get in front of them and be face to face. Every single potential sponsor that I met with in person, really, they didn't even pay into my deck. They were simply just loving the fact that I had a great personality, and they loved the way I communicated about my brand. So that was one mistake that I made that I'm wanting you guys to not make, is making sure that you understand the objectives
of the company. So that way, when you're meeting them face to face, you can communicate that you know who they are, you know what they're wanting to do, and you can do something even greater at an event that you're going to put together with them. And so my last thing, and I kind of talked about this already as far as mistakes that I was making, but mistakes that we want you to avoid, is missing data about your target audience. I cannot tell you this enough. Get it in your head that you need to understand your audience and the demographics of your audience. It is what will really help you get some checks from sponsors, because part of understanding your audience means that you also have to be able to pitch it well, understand the value, be able to get them to understand the value. So there's so much that goes into that. That's really everything that I have in regards to mistakes that you can avoid when sending out your pitch decks, and then also just what you need to do before you reach out to a sponsor. I want to use the rest of this time to answer any more questions. Oh yes, we'll definitely be sharing afterwards. But one of the things, because I went through so many different issues with trying to get resources, trying to ask people to help me with, contacts or getting sponsors, I decided to put together a guide to just really help different women and men too, because I think there's a few men on here. And what I put together was basically a guide that helps you go out and get sponsorship, whether your event is big or small. Again, what I share in that guide is basically my sponsorship deck. I also share with you verbiage that you should be using